Hey, welcome back to KP Unpacked. My name is Jeff Echols. I'm the Executive Director of Catalyst here at KP Reddy Co. And this is my opportunity to ask KP Reddy, our founder and CEO, hey, what were you thinking when you posted that on LinkedIn recently? I am joined, as usual, by KP Reddy. Hi, KP.
Hey, Jeff. How's it going?
It's going well. We've got another interesting topic. The the idea of innovation, of course, is it's just part of our every minute of every day. And in launching Catalyst over the past month or so, there's been a lot of conversation about, or framing maybe about innovation, whether that means technology or business model innovation and the whole spectrum thereof. And of course, all these things are tied together. And I think, the last episode that we recorded on brackish waters is an interesting
hmm
melding of those topics
Yeah.
in a pretty obvious way. For those who haven't listened to
Yeah.
that episode yet, you should. But
I think,
I think,
Jeff, also, like we did our weekly AMA within Catalyst
yeah,
yesterday.
yes, we did.
Um, I think that was lively.
It was, it was
It was
great.
it was
Yeah.
lively. Um, but I think like, necessity is the mother of invention,
hmm
right? Frustration might be the mother of innovation. But it felt like, the crew that was asking me all the questions, they weren't soft questions.
Right, right.
They were a little bit like, "Hey, this is really screwed up. What do you
hmm
think?" It was a lot
Yeah,
more. I mean, I don't know. I felt like maybe I was channeling my aggressive energy with the group, and then they were reflecting
responding.
that. Reflecting that,
Yeah.
but it seemed like people are kind of pissed off, which I kind of
Mm.
love. Like when you're pissed off, it's whenever you're pissed off, it's like your authentic self. And I just felt like through that AMA, people were just like, down with Autodesk kind of stuff.
Our sponsor this week is Autodesk.
Within the first 3 minutes.
Yeah,
It just felt like there was a lot of that,
yeah,
which I love.
yeah. Well, I mean that's part of what's necessary on some level, right, for innovation.
Mhm.
I was having a conversation with somebody a while back, and I go to a lot of yoga classes, and many of the yoga instructors will talk about leaning into or embracing the discomfort or something like that,
Mhm.
because that's where growth comes from,
Mhm.
right? Like there's no, well, there is a way to grow sitting on the couch eating Doritos and watching watching something on Netflix, but that's probably girth rather than growth. But you have to be able to lean into the frustrations,
Mhm.
etc., that you're talking about, into that discomfort in order to innovate,
Yeah.
right? It was a couple of episodes ago. You opened it up. I didn't know you were going to do this, but you opened up our conversation 2, 3 episodes, something like that, and you asked me. I think that's the way you did it. You asked me what's my least favorite term or something, and it's that to me, um, my least favorite term, as you well know, that's why you did that, is because this is the way we've always done it. I
Mhm.
believe that's the most dangerous term in our lexicon today. And unfortunately, that is a predominant point of view in the AEC industry, and it's not going to lead to any innovation. So
Mhm.
I thought it was a great group of participants yesterday in our Ask Me Anything on Catalyst. Great questions. We didn't even get to all of them,
No.
which is also a fantastic sign. Sorry we didn't get to your question, and also fantastic.
Yeah.
Right, we've got so much participation, so many people interested that we run out of time. We shut it off right at an hour. So
Yeah. Do you
so
think
good thing.
it's a fair assumption that everyone in that group, um, that if they were gonna walk out of their office, leave their structural engineering firm, their architecture firm, their construction company,
hmm
let's say they got inherited a couple bucks, right? Some seed capital. Do you
Mm.
think any one of them would walk out and start a business similar to the job that they're in? In other words, am I going to leave my architecture firm and start another architecture firm? And if they
And
did, would it look a lot like what they left?
you're talking about people that are in Catalyst,
Hmm.
members of, yeah. No, I don't think they would.
Yeah.
But that's been the history of AEC, right? I work at a firm, and for whatever reason, I decide I need a change. I get frustrated with my project manager
Mhm.
or the hours, or there's been a change, in my family dynamic or whatever. There's lots and lots of reasons. But the history of AEC is full of examples of people leaving where they are, the firm where they are, to go out and do it on their own, and many times saying, I can do this better, I can make more money, whatever. But what they do is recreate what they already know.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so it just perpetuates. I don't think the members of the Catalyst community,
No,
I don't think so.
because I know a couple of them, I'm actually helping them. They're building a side hustle. They're trying to build a business
Hmm.
with the intention of leaving their day job.
Sure.
And I think what's interesting is it's still in their industry, still leveraging their expertise, their subject
Mm-hmm.
matter expertise, still leveraging their network, but because they're starting with a blank sheet of paper,
Mm.
they're just taking a totally different. And I'll take some credit in, like, how to, actually, remember someone asked yesterday. They said,
Inspiration.
yeah, they said, "Hey, KP, how do we think differently?"
Yeah, that was,
Remember, it was like
yep.
a great question. I said,
I think it was Nick's question.
yeah, and I said, look, the way you start thinking differently is you go back to first principles.
Hmm.
You go back to first principles of why and how and what. Like, those are all the first principle thinking, right?
Which is so incredibly ironic.
Mhm.
This is the way we've always done it, has very often forgotten about first principles.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The client's buying a building. They're not buying your drawing. Like, just the basics
Yeah.
of get back to first. And I think it seems like so, like, weird, right? To say, how do you think differently? And then I say, like, go back to first principles. People are like,
Hmm.
how's that different? I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
because we veer off of first principles through time, through environments. I think someone was telling me the other day how we lost so much talent during the Great Recession.
Mm.
That so many people left the industry. Not everything is like self-inflicted. Sometimes a
Yeah.
lot of it is self-inflicted. But the firm from 50 years ago that maybe had like a first principle approach of here's how we're going to do things, here's what the market wants and needs,
Hmm.
quickly goes through some journey of things, and they're so far away from first principles
Yeah.
that I think it was funny. I think people were taken aback when I'm like, "How do I think differently?" I'm like, "Get back to the beginning. Start at the
Hmm.
beginning." I don't think that was the answer they were looking for,
Right. No.
but
But
I think that is the answer.
yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that conjures up in my mind is the popularity of Simon Sinek.
Mhm.
So Simon Sinek, many people have heard of Start With Why. Most people have watched his TED Talk, but not actually read the book. You should read the book.
Mhm.
And then his next book was The Infinite Game,
Mhm.
which I think is really actually more important than Start With Why. But
Mhm.
both of those are first principle books. Start With Why certainly is,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
That's absolutely first principles. And The Infinite Game is really, don't forget why you play the game.
Mhm.
Right. And of course, he's the master of storytelling, of the corporate disasters, Kodak, and others. But it's not lost in me that while we spend all of our time talking about AI, machine learning, emerging technology, disruption, which we prefer to talk about now rather than innovation, disruption of business models, etc. And you've got this guy over here, Simon Sinek, that's going, okay, do you actually know why you do what you do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is just as important a conversation as Grok 4.
Yeah.
What are you going
Yeah.
to do with Grok 4 and why?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
and I think, look, I think that's, back to the first principles. Did, I'm an engineer. Um, my client wants me to design a bridge,
Okay.
right? Great. It needs to be economical, fit within the budget, meet the safety requirements. I'm going to go start a company that design bridges. When did timesheets come into this conversation?
Well,
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's like what the work is, right? The work ahead of us is that. And, how do I think about optimizing for materials or whatnot, right? But remember that class in architecture school you had about timesheets?
yeah. Well, the architecture student's handbook of professional practice, they're in there.
Timesheets are in there?
Probably.
Oh my God.
I actually haven't read the book.
And you just teach it.
I just teach it. I
You
tell
just
students,
set it in Grok.
here's the text. I wouldn't buy it.
Yeah.
That'll get me hired.
Yeah.
It's
So anyway,
it's in
I
this
think I
running
think
the
that,
practice, chapter 4.
oh, is it what it say? Keep track of time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because customers buy timesheets. They don't buy
Mm-hmm.
bridges.
Well, that's interesting, right? It is driven. So again, I'm the anti-commoditization guy. It's driven by customers that want to know how you spent your time, but then that goes back to the agreement that was a completely commoditizing agreement.
Mhm,
You sold it based on time,
mhm,
right? So it becomes this vicious circle of timesheets
mhm.
when none of it is actually speaking to any value proposition.
Right. Yeah. The number one email that goes out within firms is be sure to get your timesheets in, timesheet deadline, expense deadline, timesheet deadline.
Hmm.
There's more
And it's also the
conversation.
number one point of dispute.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the client's like, this has no alignment to what I'm
Hmm.
buying.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Well,
care
it's
about your time.
you just charged me for 5,000 hours. How in the world did you burn 5,000 hours?
Mhm.
Well, our timesheets show.
You know what the worst part is? Like, I don't even think our industry cheats that much on timesheets. Unlike lawyers. I think lawyers cheat a lot on timesheets.
This episode brought to you by Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe.
Yeah. But I think the point is, like, really digging into first principles,
Yeah.
right? It's just so, like, that's the beginning of all of this. And I think, um, if we continue to iterate off of what we know, I think we'll iterate. It'll all just be incremental. You have no choice, right? You just got to blow this
Sure.
shit up. You got to blow it
Yeah.
up and start from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is like near impossible to do in an existing firm,
Hmm.
right? That's why they say things like change management. You know what change management is? Change management is a people problem.
Hmm.
If you have to like spend so much time and energy around change management, you have the wrong people, right? The good news is when you start from scratch, there is no change management.
Yeah.
So I
It's
think
new. It's new
I think
management.
what's right, and I think what's interesting is um, that I think we're entering a zone now where there's capital, there's ideas, there's capital that's interested in ideas, and I think generally the industry is equally as fed up as the customers they serve,
Hmm.
unless you're really excited about filling out your timesheet. But I just don't think you know how to get out of it. You just don't know how to get out of it, right?
Yeah.
Running a 500 person firm, how do you wake up tomorrow and say, I'm going to do something different?
It that's very difficult. And I was actually having this conversation earlier today with a firm leader. Um, starting from scratch is often the answer, right? We have these conversations with clients and things, advisory clients, and those pop up in our mastermind groups. And it also reminds me, there's a book called Where Do Good Ideas Come From? Stephen Johnson, I think, and he talks a lot about near adjacencies, right? And basically, hey, we're trying to figure something out. Somebody else is doing it over here. It jumps across the near adjacency and blows this thing up, right? Creates, and when he talks about that, he says, often we see innovation. We see the iPod or whatever is like this big, groundbreaking change, and it's not.
No.
It's an incremental change that leapt over from something else that just blew it up when it came over, and all of a sudden it looks like this big change. And so I think that tracks with that really well. It's often, like this conversation I was having earlier. It's like, yeah, you're probably going to have to spin out something new.
Yeah, and I think to your point, right? Like, if you take, if we're drawing out a little triangle and you said success, innovation, and adoption, right? Like, what's
That's
the
an
correlation?
interesting math formula.
Right? What's the correlation, right? Because I would say success and adoption doesn't necessarily mean innovation.
No,
And success and innovation doesn't necessarily mean adoption.
definitely not.
Right. And I think we see plenty of examples of that, right? So I think that's where I think a lot of people, would Steve Jobs be a genius if nobody bought the iPod? Right?
Yeah, no.
It wouldn't have made it less, we could all be walking around with Zunes and Microsoft phones right now.
Yeah.
We could still be walking around with Blackberries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh, that guy Steve Jobs, what a nut. Right? Which also starts to lead into innovation and go to market, right?
Right.
Which
Definitely.
was brilliant. The go to market for the iPhone was brilliant. For those of you that don't remember, you could only get the iPhone 1. You could only get it at AT&T. And AT&T was a big backer financially of the go to market because they had that exclusivity.
Yeah.
It was a differentiator to get people would switch off. I mean, I think the most number of switching to AT&T happened with the iPhone 1 because that was the only way.
It had to have. Had to have. Yeah.
AT&T. I mean, that was their entire kind of business model, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because you bring that up, and in my Commodity As This Commodity Does talk, I've got a whole section on the iPod, right? And it was not the first MP3 player, right? And there's the go to market. It's exactly what you were just saying. The go to market for the iPod was brilliant. The go to market for the others, not. Was the iPod an innovation? No, I don't think so. Yeah. So let's see. Now we have to make an announcement. This episode brought to you by AT&T and Apple. Yeah, we've already offended 4 sponsors, 3 real and 1 fake, and we haven't even read the post that we're unpacking today. It's all product placement, folks. By the way,
I was talking to a podcaster friend of mine, Owen Drury, does Bricks and Bytes, Bytes and Bricks. He's in. We check in. He's based in the UK, and we check in every once in a while. And I always give him a hard time about my stats are better than his stats, and that kind of stuff. We just kind of give each other a hard time. And I was telling him about like, hey, we're crossing sponsors off the list every time we record. And he was like, yeah, like I think even if you want to stay true to your content, right? And just be above it all, above the fray. He's like, you just can't help it. He's like, the minute you get, because they don't do sponsorship either. And we're just talking about that. Like, is it even worth it? The minute you get a sponsor, is there a really good chance the content gets worse because you can't say the things. Now, clearly, if it's product you believe in, if it's Element or AG1 and stuff like that, maybe that's different, right? Maybe that's different. But in our world of technology talk, can you beat up XYZ company? They're the only ones that have budget, by the way, to sponsor anything we would want to do.
And they still won't.
Yeah. And then, right. And then we'd have to, have real conversations about them. And then, they're not going to be happy about that. So it's, his point was like, I don't think you have a choice, but end up being like a shill for the advertiser in our industry.
I don't know about that. I mean,
that's what Built World says.
Strike off another one. You struck that one off a long time ago.
Yeah, they're not going to sponsor anything.
Yeah. But I've got the Pro Practice manual here again for those of you that are listening. I pulled it out as we were talking about timesheets, but it all comes down to the agreement, right? It was the last episode or 2 episodes ago. I mentioned the YouTube video I was watching, and the host said, "Here's why XYZ sucks."
Yeah.
And I was like, "What?" And then I realized that was their hook, right? To talk about the sponsor. So it's, anything can be agreed upon, I suppose.
Yeah.
Potentially. If you're new around here and you've been listening now for 20 minutes, 20 minutes of KP and Jeff offending sponsors, rambling on and on about timesheets and business models, they're actually related. So what we typically do in these episodes is I read one of KP's posts from LinkedIn. If you're not following him on LinkedIn, you should go over there and follow him. Don't try to connect with him. What happens when someone goes to your profile and they try to connect to you and you're full? Is it like a self-destruct button or what happens?
No, I leave one slot open because that's what'll happen. It'll be like person has too many followers or whatever, right? So what happens is when they try to connect, someone typically responds back to them. Like I wake up every morning, there's like 50 people trying to connect, right? And then they reply to them with InMail. Sometimes it's InMail, sometimes it's not. But they basically just send them a note saying, "Hey, I'm at my limit. Here's my email address that you can reach out to me, or you can come over to Catalyst or whatnot." What's really interesting about that is I think a lot of people passively just try to connect to you. I would say probably 1 in 20 people, I literally give them my email address. Now it comes to me, but it's monitored, right? Because I can't some email. I have multiple email addresses for different things, right? But I do look at it, right? Because there's a lot of scammers out there, and sometimes Angela, my assistant, just
is this real or is this Memorex? Yeah,
she takes everybody at face value. Like, oh, this person
it's hard to tell.
Help. Right, it's hard. This person needs help. I'm like, oh, they're trying to sell me some stable coin. No, delete. So I do look at it from a high level perspective, but generally speaking, they get an email back saying, "Here's my email address. Here's our website. If you want to, blah blah blah. Or here's different ways." It's probably 1 out of 25, maybe higher, that actually email me.
Doesn't
And
surprise
so
me.
it's interesting that people just kind of click on stuff, but they're not intentional. I mean, my view is if you're connecting to me, you're generally a startup that wants money. Like if I don't really know you, right? If I don't know you and you're a startup and you're connecting to me, you're either a vendor because I need more B2B marketing leads, Uh,
Yeah.
there's that, right? Or you're a go-to-market chief or whatever, which
Hmm.
the first thing I do is look at how many LinkedIn followers you have, and I'm
Yeah.
generally unimpressed, right? But generally, I would expect that um, the people reaching out are trying to pitch me, right? They have a reason, right? They're transactional.
Yeah.
But it's like maybe 1 in 25 that actually emails and says, "Hey, yeah, I want to see if I can get some time on your calendar to pitch my startup or whatever." Um, which is interesting. I mean, maybe not surprising, but interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so it's good to know nobody self-destructs. Um, so you should be following KP. You could give it a shot. You can see if
Mhm,
you can compete for the one spot.
mhm,
Um, but at the very least, follow KP because he's posting 2 or 3 times a day. Great insights. Some absolutely meant to stir the pot. Some reflections from his travels and work with clients, etc. But um, what we do is once a week we unpack one of those posts here on KP Unpack. That's the name.